Welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I have a topic I want to dive into, and that is around. So, if you're in the States, or I guess not in the States, you can be on this side of the hemisphere. Again, there's more than just the States here. With that, then we're going into winter season, right? So, this can be a really challenging time. Again, what I typically see here is client motivation and adherence slip during this period of time, right? And again, it's also mood. And again, it has to do mostly with less daylight, it's colder out. And there are some things that happen, right? During this period of time. Now, again, this is partly because of holidays, but I think the bigger thing at play is how our routines change, particularly from colder weather and less time that's light out. And even myself, I noticed a change in my overall mood around this time. In the past, I would let it impact me, but now I'm more aware of what's going on and I can limit its impact, right? Just recently, time change here about a month ago, it's light out for a lot of the day. And then all of a sudden, once we get that time change, it's not getting light out till 7 a.m. and then it's getting dark at 4:30, right? That's a really short time. And it just feels like the days get like super short. And then it's already, okay, you're stuck inside. And it really can mess with your mood and just overall motivation. But in saying this, yes, I do think this is but I also think the bigger thing at play is our routine and habits during this period of time. And I think there's some things that we can do to help work with this period of time versus against it. Now, if you're someone who is lucky that lives in a little bit of a warmer environment, you can still get outside, but it's easier for you to get outside. But in saying that, I think the big thing is that the less daylight, right? The lack of sun, I think can really impact people, especially if you work a job inside and you go to work at 7 or 8 and it's dark. It's not really light out. You can't get outside. And then you get home at 5 and it's dark, right? You really don't have that opportunity to ever get outside. And that can be challenging. That can really impact how we feel there, right? I think just, again, getting outside is going to be super important there. Again, so how can we manage this period of time? Like I said, it's more so about the things that we do. And as I go through these tips here, I'll explain how, if you don't do this, how it can start to impact you. And this can explain how you feel. All right. So the first is going to be vitamin D supplementation. Less sunlight is going to equal lower vitamin D levels. That's how we get most of our vitamin D is through sunlight. What did I mention though? At the onset here is it's dark for a lot more. So we're not getting outside. And then if you're somebody who works that 9 to 5 job, you're not really able to ever get outside. So you're lacking that sunlight that you need, right? So one thing we can do here is we can take 3 to 5,000 IUs of vitamin D per day, right? Because low vitamin D levels are going to impact your mood and energy, right? It's going to impact how you feel. And so again, we want to make sure we take this. So 3 to 5,000 IUs is a solid number to aim for. As always, check with your medical doctor, but for most, this should be safe, especially during this period of time. And if you're not really able to ever get outside and get some sunlight. So again, we want to make sure we take vitamin D to supplement this. Might be smart to also take K2 with it, vitamin K2 as well, something to look into with that as well there. But again, make sure we're taking that vitamin D supplementation during this time of year. Next, and this kind of goes hand in hand with that, but we want to get outside and we want to get some sunlight when possible. And we still want to get outside, even if it's later at night, or again, maybe it's not sunny out, we still want to try and get outside. Even if it's cold, getting outside for a quick walk or some sunlight can help regulate your mood and sleep. If you can't get outside at all, some sort of light therapy could be helpful for you if that's something that you just can't ever get outside at all. But again, yes, for the vitamin D, get outside, get some sun. It's going to be hard to really get a lot anyways during this period of time. But we're more so doing this for our mood, and just, again, being stuck inside all the time just sucks. So we want to get outside, and it's going to help improve your mood, right? Even if it is cold, you just need to bundle up a little bit more here in this process. Again, I understand for some people, it's going to be so freaking cold out that on certain days that it's just, you're not going to be able to do it. That's fine. But again, we do want to try to get a little uncomfortable here with this. If it's 30 degrees and you're like, it's too cold out, it's not too cold. You just need to bundle up and just get a little uncomfortable. Now, if you're super north and it's minus 20 degrees out, okay, you got a good point here. It's going to be a little bit harder to get outside. But again, I feel like for most people, it's never going to get too cold to where you can't just bundle up and get a little uncomfortable and get outside. Again, you're going to feel better. And I do think it's also a little bit of just getting used to it, but it's also this whole thing where we're just overly comfortable all the time. I think we just we get so, used to our modern environment of being very climate controlled in our houses and being inside that we get so used to that we never step outside of our comfort zone and get used to it. To me, it's just like building muscle. In order to build muscle, you just need to progressively overload over time and you adapt, and next year you're stronger. I think it's the same thing here with getting outside. It's like at first, yeah, it may be cold, but hey, again, bundle up. And then also just understand that you probably need to adapt to it a little bit here. But look, if you're just staying inside all winter, I think that's going to impact your mood. So if you're feeling like you're not feeling good or motivated or your mood's off, like, again, just try and get some time outside. You don't have to be out there for an hour at a time. Maybe it's just 10 to 15 minutes. And I think this is especially important for people who, if you work a job 9 to 5 and you're inside all day, doing this in the middle of your day, I think can really go a long way here. So again, we want to make sure we get some sunlight and get outside when possible. 3, obviously, we want to make sure we stay active and continue to lift, right? It's easy to get out of your routine during this time. Again, whether that be maybe you're not getting outside, you're feeling worse overall, you have low motivation. Again, I already gave you some tips to potentially counteract that. And so it's easy to get out of your routine, but exercise is going to be a mood booster, right? Plus, exercise can help offset any extra food during this time of year. Again, we want to make sure we lift, we want to get some cardio in, and we want to maintain a step count. It's important that we stay active during this period of time. Some people may still lift, right? They may go to the gym, but you may see like your step count or cardio decrease because now we're not moving as much outside or something like that, right? And I do think that's a big mistake because, again, maintaining that activity and staying active is going to help your overall mood. It's going to help with, again, offsetting any of maybe extra food you're having during the holiday season. And again, it's going to help with sleep. And the big thing just being your mood. You're just going to feel better if you stay active. So make sure you're still hitting your step goal. And again, this could be you combine this with, hey, I'm going to get a little uncomfortable and get a 10 to 15 minute walk in maybe a couple times a day outside now after hearing this. And that helps maintain your activity levels, right? So again, we want to make sure we're staying active and still doing things here because, again, that's only going to help us, one, stay motivated, and you're going to feel better overall, which in turn is going to help with motivation and, again, working through this time of year. Next thing that's going to be super important is like your circadian rhythm and sleep hygiene, right? I think having good sleep hygiene practices is going to be key during this period of time. Because we're stuck inside more and people tend to be less active in the winter, your sleep and circadian health can be impacted, leading to poor sleep, right? We're not getting as much natural light, sunlight. That's going to impact your circadian rhythm. We're less active now because of it. Now we're less active. That's going to impact your sleep. And so I feel like people end up just being in this, and then your sleep's impacted. Now we're not getting great sleep. And it's this trickle down effect here of that's going to impact your mood. Poor sleep's going to impact your mood. You're not getting that sunlight. That's going to impact your mood. That's going to impact, which is in turn going to impact your motivation. And it's just this vicious cycle for 2 to 3 months out of the year. And then people wonder why they don't feel good. So again, what are some things that we can do here to continue to practice good sleep hygiene practices? All the things I've mentioned so far, right? So getting outside, staying active, those are going to be super helpful. Keep a somewhat regular sleep and wake time. So just make sure that we're falling asleep within an hour or two, what we normally do. And again, we're sleeping and we're waking up around the same time as well too each day. I think that waking up's a big one, which it also starts with the night before, but I think the one that you see the biggest kind of thing here is on the weekends, people will sleep into 6 or 7, 8, 9, 10 when they're usually waking up at 4, 5, 6 or something like that, right? Again, we just want to avoid those big shifts from day to day. And so again, we want to keep a somewhat regular sleep and wake time. Next, we want to avoid a lot of blue light before bed. Again, it can be easy to, now that you're inside more, you're watching TV a bit more, maybe you're sitting on your phone a little bit more, you're doing things like that. And now we're getting a bunch of blue light exposure right before bed, right? And again, that's going to impact our sleep, which then it impacts sleep and that impacts your mood the next day. Then you don't get outside. And again, you can continue to see this kind of vicious cycle here with that. And then lastly, we want to incorporate some sort of a wind down routine. So just make sure that you do something that, gets you in a relaxed state before you go to bed. I actually just had a conversation with a client recently who her son, I believe, was staying up like a little bit later. They had some things going on there with that. And then she was stressing about getting to bed at the same time or at a certain time. And then she would just went straight to bed and then she was tossing and turning and then she wasn't getting good sleep quality. So the thing we talk about doing there is, hey, don't stress about getting to sleep exactly at the same time. If you just do something and then you go straight to bed, that's probably going to impact your sleep. So just make sure you get some at least 20 to 30 minute sort of wind down routine, whether you do some breath work, you just sit on the couch and just sit there, you journal, whatever it may be, you plan out the next day, whatever it is, just do something that's going to get you out of your head and you can relax and then you can go to sleep versus just going straight to sleep after doing something that's keeping you up. For me too, I've noticed that anytime we do something and I try to go straight to bed, it just takes me much longer to fall asleep and I just don't get as good quality of sleep. So Allie will always be like, hey, let's go to bed. Why are you staying up? And say, as weird as it sounds, I'm okay with sacrificing 30 to 40 minutes of sleep to have that wind down routine to get to bed sooner and get that higher quality of sleep there. Next, we need to moderate alcohol intake. I think this is a smart thing to do all the time, but especially during this period of time. Again, it's easier to not do it, right? Maybe you don't feel as great. Maybe alcohol makes you feel better. So now you have a little bit more alcohol, or maybe because you're not getting as much sunlight now, you're not staying as active. It's harder for you to fall asleep. So then you use alcohol to help you fall asleep. Or maybe you're stressed for all these things that we mentioned. You're not doing all these things. And then you have alcohol to help you relieve that stress. And then now it impacts your sleep, and it can deplete your nutrient status as well too. So alcohol you'll burn through your nutrients a little bit quicker, and so we have this higher risk of nutrient deficiency. So we need to make sure that we're also eating a well-balanced diet with that. And again, that can be hard if alcohol's making up a chunk of your nutrition. So again, this leads to increased risk of sickness and lower motivation overall. Increased risk of sickness is from, again, you may be lacking some vitamins and minerals in your diet. It can also be because now you're having alcohol, you're getting poorer sleep, and that's going to leave you at an increased risk of sickness. But also from the motivation standpoint, for missing vitamins and minerals, again, that can impact how you feel from day to day. But then on top of it, for not getting good sleep because of the alcohol, that can impact your motivation as well too. So again, you can see how these things just really start to spiral here during this period of time. So again, we really need to make sure we moderate that alcohol intake. And this is going to be probably 1 to 2 drinks a night. Maybe if you have a big event that doesn't come around often, maybe it's 3 to 4, a little bit more. But again, I think we really want to try to avoid high frequencies, but we also want to avoid too much at once. So a client asked me like, hey, with alcohol, what's quote unquote too much? And again, I think it comes down to, is it better to do it a little bit more often or have more one night? And again, I think really at the end of the day, at some point, it's even if we cut down to 1 a night, I still think that's going to be something that impacts your sleep. So I think again, a frequency of no more than 2 to 3 per week, 2 to 3 times in drinking per week. And then the more often we drink, the less we need to have in each one. So if we only drink once a week, maybe you can have up to 2 to 3 drinks that night, right? Again, that's still probably going to impact your sleep. So you have to take that in consideration. We still want to really avoid more than 2-ish drinks in one single night regularly. Again, if you do it every once in a while, that's fine. It's not going to kill you. But again, we do it. The more often we do it, the more it's going to impact us. But on the flip side, if you want to drink three nights a week, it's now we're looking at, hey, you probably really should only have about 1 drink per night there with that. So again, just understand that those variables will impact that number there. So again, that's the unfortunate truth. I know that's like super anti-fun, but it's just the unfortunate truth. The other option is, hey, you don't really worry about that, then just understand that you're going to be at a higher risk of these things. And I think everything else becomes even more important, right? Getting outside then and when you can, taking vitamin D, making sure you stay active and work out still. So again, understand that's a choice. And there's just going to be some things where it's, yeah, I know that's the case, but you know what? I really enjoy this and I'm not going to give that up. And hey, that's fine too, right? You have that option. You just have to understand what the trade-offs are of that. And then lastly, we want to avoid crash dieting too. We want to avoid crash diets that lack nutrition. Again, this can also lead to an increased risk of sickness. And we're not getting in enough nutrients through the diet. And overall, again, we can still fat loss diet, but we just need to be smart about it. Okay. We want to focus on nutrient dense foods to fuel your body and stabilize your mood. Because again, if we just crash diet, that's not going to be great either. Again, it's going to lead to that increased risk of sickness, lower motivation, and everything like that. So we need to make sure that if we diet, we do it in a smart way during this period of time. So those are my tips for you to manage this period of time. Let me know if you have any questions on this. Let me know if there's any that I maybe miss. Again, you can reach out to me on Instagram on that, Jeff, or you can ask me any questions on there as well too. Also, if you found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find this. You're somebody who struggles with this period of time, and you know what, you're listening to this, and you're like, oh man, maybe I do need a little bit more guidance around this. Then my free 30-minute strategy calls for you. We'll map out a game plan, figure out what your biggest limiting factors are, and we'll go from there. Let me know if you have the link to that is in the show notes if you want to book that. That's it for this episode. I will chat with you guys next time.